I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So my name's Tony Jones. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Manager at SCIA. Normally, for those that have joined our forums previously, we usually have Jade with us, but I'm flying solo today. So again, bear with me. Jade usually does a lot of this work. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. If possible, when you would like to ask a question or make a comment, please use the hand raise function. We want this forum to be a safe place to interact and provide feedback and be respectful to others. One person speaking at a time to ensure that everyone can hear questions, answers and comments. The meeting will be recorded. If you would not like your face to be shown or voice to be recorded, you can turn your camera off and ask questions and make comments in the chat function. Okay, so I'm just letting a couple of more people in. Go to the next slide, and we have Tracey Hobbs with us today. Hi, Tracey, from the Carer Gateway, who's joining us to talk about the importance of supporting our carers. So I'm going to hand over to Tracey. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. I am just going to share my screen if that is okay. Just
please do.
A second. And the power of technology. Hopefully it will pop up uno momento. Just thinking about it.
I can see it.
Can you see the presentation, can you?
Yes, I can.
Oh, I can't. It's all black on my screen.
Oh,
okay. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, well, I will fly blind until it loads. So hi everyone.
Yep, sorry. If you need me to go through or just let you know which slide you're on, happy to do that.
It looks like it's loading. So
okay, terrific.
Anyway, we'll just wait and see what happens. So hi everyone, my name is Tracey and I am from Carer Gateway. Just a little bit about Carer Gateway. It's a federally funded program which it obviously goes across Australia because it is federally funded. So we have the same program, and all the things I'm going to talk about today applies across the whole of Australia. Within New South Wales, there are 4 service providers that have contracted with the government to provide this service, and the Benevolent Society is one of them, and that's who I work for. We have separate sections with, demographics and geographics, which allow us to ensure that there's no crossover with service providers as well. Oh, there we go. I've just popped up. All good. Who is a carer? So this is the $1 million question, really, because carers don't see themselves as carers. They see themselves as a mum looking after a child, or a husband looking after a wife, or a daughter looking after her parents. So it's quite a complicated landscape. A lot of people associate the word carer with support workers. So it's quite a complicated landscape, especially when you get into the multicultural aspect of it as well. So who do we look after in terms of Carer Gateway? So the definition of a carer is someone who gives support to a relative or friend who has a disability, mental health condition, life-limiting health or medical condition, such as a spinal injury, drug or alcohol addiction, or are frail due to being aged or older. So our program is quite broad. as long as the care recipient falls into one of those 5 scenarios, it's regardless of age, it's regardless of whether they're on NDIS or My Aged Care. Our program isn't means tested, and it also is open for residents and non-residents as well. You don't have to be living with the person that you're caring for, and you also, so even if they're in an aged care facility, or if they're in a supported independent living facility, or just they're your next door neighbour, you can still apply to be a carer, because chances are you're giving some support to that person. So what services can carers access through our program? So on the left, there's the Carer Gateway website, which is the government-funded website. And there's a lot of generic information on that website. So there's generic phone counselling. So by generic, I mean it's still one-on-one, but if the carer's under stress, they can call the 1-800 number, which I'll give to you later, and they can select option 2 and they'll get generic counselling, which means they'll get put to a counsellor and they can talk about their immediate problems. But if they call again tomorrow to talk to, they won't get the same person. So they'll have to talk about that scenario again. So that's just a generic, almost instantaneous counselling. So when they're really got carer fatigue. The other parts that where they have is some online peer support and community forum as well. So again, it could be different people each time you log on, which some people like. There's also some online guided coaching and skills courses, which are all videoed. So the carer can jump in and out of those when they can. They can pause them, come back, in an hour's time or something like that, and have a look at it. So they're all, again, very broad. So there's things like how, an overview of NDIS, an overview of My Aged Care, and a few other service providers as well, Centrelink and things like that. But it's not carer specific. The stuff that is carer specific is the items that are provided by the local service provider. And I'll go through each of these items with you. But as I said, it's a Australia-wide program. So while every service provider who has the contract with the government across Australia provides all these aspects on the right, the local service provider list, each of the activities within those elements would vary depending on what the service provider has available to them, but also in the local area as well. So emergency respite is for exactly that. Something's happened to the carer and it's leaving the care recipient vulnerable. So it could be that a scenario that we had a few weeks ago was a gentleman went to the groceries. He fell over and broke his hip. He also hit his head and he was unconscious. But his wife was at home with Parkinson's. So the ambulance officer tried to get in contact with the family, couldn't get in contact with them. But the gentleman had one of our emergency care plan cards in his wallet. So they called us and said, we're not sure what this is, but he says he's a carer and he's got his wife at home. We're taking him to the hospital. We need someone to come in and look after his wife because we can't get hold of the family. So we organised for a support worker to go to the home, obviously via the hospital to get the keys, to go to the home to let the wife know that something had happened, but he was okay and he was being looked after, and they were going to stay with her until the family arrived, which was only an hour or so, but it was still something that we could put in place. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical injury. It could also be that the person is suffering from carer fatigue and they're about to walk out. This happens quite regularly. So this is another form of emergency support that we can put in place. And we don't just put a support worker in place for the care recipient. We'll also put some services in place for the carer as well, which means we could give them a bit of respite as well. So we will take them out of that scenario, give them some respite so that they can stop, revive and survive. And then when they're ready to move back into the caring role or work out another alternative as well. So the point is, it's not necessarily I've had a fall or I've been in an accident. It could be just carer fatigue as well. The next part of the package is tailored support packages, and there's two types of packages that we can offer. The first one's an educational package and training package. That looks like it could be that you might have someone with a spinal injury and it's been caused from an accident, and you now need to learn how to do manual handling because you don't want to get hurt yourself. We can pay for those manual handling courses. It could be that you're looking after someone with mental health illness, so we could pay for a mental health first aid course. So there's also where we can pay, assist carers to get back into employment as well. So if they want to do a TAFE course, for instance, we can also help with payment for that too. The second part of the tailored support package is practical support. And that could be support workers that come in the home to give the carer a break. So that would look like a support worker coming in to maybe do some personal care. It could be to do some transport to and from doctor's appointments. It could be to do a little bit of housework or cooking or mow the lawns or stuff like that. They're not Jamie Oliver or Marie Kondo. They're not going to come and reorganise your house or make you a gourmet dinner. They're support workers who also do domestic assistance as well. So they will do a bit of meal prep, you know, clean up around the house just to try and give the carer a little bit of a break. Now, this is on top of any NDIS or My Aged Care that the care recipient has as well. So it's in addition to, and it's usually used at that point where you're either applying for NDIS or you're applying for My Aged Care, or you're on the other side of it and you've run out of money from your package, or you don't have either of those government funded programs either. So it's in addition to, but it's used on either side of those programs, if that makes sense. So if you've got NDIS or My Aged Care funding, we'll make sure that you've used that first, and then we'll move on to our funding. But it can also be used, it's really just to give the carer time. So it's about planned respite for the carer. So if the carer wants to go and get their hair done, for instance, we can put a support worker in place to stay with the person who they're caring for, or if they need to go to the doctors or anything like that, we have the staff that can go and do that. Feel free to ask questions through the middle of this presentation too, just by raising your hand, and I'll get through. So the next part of the program is peer support. Now, I know a lot of organisations, and I'm sure you guys organise a peer support group as well. We don't just group people by the person that they're caring for. So, for instance, we won't group all the carers who are caring for someone with dementia together. We try and group them by what their interests are as a carer, to try and bring that focus back to them rather than the person that they're caring for. So we will hold sessions about dementia or spinal injury or manual handling or things like that, but the session it's an opt-in session. These peer support groups are various. So they could be caring for anyone who has any of those 5 scenarios that I mentioned earlier. Our peer support groups are about connecting with other people. It's about learning and sharing some experiences. But most of all, it's about change of scenery and about just giving them some time to themselves and creating that space for their own interests. Our peer support groups run a little bit different, where we don't just sit in a hall and talk about being a carer. We do what we call cake therapy, also known as cake decorating, but we need to call it therapy. Anyway, we do African drumming. We might do mindfulness. We will do overnight workshops where we will take the carers away to a hotel. We'll pay for all the accommodation, all the food, all the activities, so that they can have a true respite. We do 3-day workshops as well, and we do take them to places like the Hunter Valley or the Blue Mountains or Kiama or somewhere, you know, a bit relaxing, so that they can just do that part of putting their own oxygen mask on, learning a little bit about self-care and acknowledging the hard work that they've put in and just giving them some time to themselves so that they can stop, revive and survive, and keep going as carers. We also have in-person counselling. This is also on the phone or via Zoom as well. So we have, it basically depends on the carer, how they'd like to manage it. Some people are happy to talk on the phone or via Zoom with their person that they're caring for in the same location. Some people don't. So we will do in-person counselling as well. They get 6 sessions for free, and it's, you know, they can talk about anything they like in regards to that caring role, and we'll give them strategies to try and help with that emotional load. It could be that, you know, we're talking to some people who, one lady who's putting her mum into a nursing home at the moment. Her sister's not very happy with that. Mind you, her sister doesn't care for her mum. So there's a bit of tension between the family as well. So it's those sort of things that we can talk to them about with counselling. With coaching, it's a little bit different. This is about how we bring joy back into their lives. So how do we give them some time to themselves? It could be that they might want to go for a walk once a week, but can't quite work out how to fit that into their day. So we can work with them on some time management skills. Could be that they'd like to get back into employment. So we'll talk to them about job interview skills and how to write a resume. It's in this coaching piece, again, another 6 sessions on top of those 6 counselling sessions. And the coaching can be about anything they want, but it is about how to bring joy back into their life and get them to do the things that they used to do before they became a carer. Now, the most exciting part of the program is the Young Carer program. Now, young carers are people who are under the age of 25 and are caring for a loved one. 1 in 9 people are carers in Australia. And if you think of a classroom of children, of that classroom, there's usually 4 children who are caring for a parent or a sibling. So the numbers are quite high. It's even more complicated with the young carers in regards to identification, because a lot of the young carers are born into the family and that's all they know. They don't see it as a caring role. They just see that they're a sister to a child with a disability, or they're just looking after their mum because that's what they've always done since they were little. So trying to help these young people identify that they're carers is part of our role. And we use their packages a little bit differently to the adults, the adult packages. So for the young carers, we can pay for things like driving lessons, because when they turn 16 and they get their L's straight away, sometimes mum and dad don't have time to do the 120 hours of driving that it takes for them to get their license. So we can pay for some of that. We can also pay for tutoring to ensure that they keep up their education. We can also pay for laptops and mobile phones if they need that for schooling as well. So we have an 8-year-old boy who's on our books at the moment, who's registered with us, and he's looking after his 80-year-old grandmother because his mum passed away. So we've purchased a laptop for him and a mobile phone for both him and his grandmother so that they can stay in contact with each other. And he comes on school holiday camps with us, and Nan comes to the workshops with us. So they both get a bit of respite from each other at different times. So the other thing that we do with our peer support with the young carers is we run sessions like barista courses, first aid courses. We'll do RSA courses, cooking classes, just so that they can learn a few life skills as well, so that we can assist them with their caring role. But we also do fun things where we take them to places like the Harbour Bridge climb, or we might do go-karting, so that they can just have some time as young people and just have friends, have some fun, but also meet people who are their same age, who are in the same situation as them, because chances are their friends at school aren't doing the same thing that they're doing. So we want to try and support them as much as we can. Now, the other part of this program is that we don't just register the primary carer. So, for instance, if you have a wife who's been in an accident and dad's looking after the mum, and dad can register because he'll be looking after mum, but the children involved in the family chances are they're providing support to mum as well. So they can register for this young carer program. Same if there's grandparents in the home as well, and grandparents are looking after mum too, they can register as well. This gives them access to all the same services, but a larger amount of service because you've got multiple people in the home who are registered. We'll register them based on their caring needs, and we will have a chat to them about what we can do to support them as an individual. But we also look at it from a family unit, because if the family's okay and all the carers are okay, then the care recipient's okay. So we want to try and have that aspect. So this is just a little bit about the carer journey. So when someone, just so you understand how it all works when they register. So they give us a call, they apply online, or you can register them as service providers as well. We will do their intake, which is a quick information. It's basically their contact details and what's happening with the person that they're caring for. So what's the scenario? We will speak to them about, give them a call and we'll have a detailed conversation with them. It's not an assessment. It's just a conversation about what they do in terms of caring and how we can support them. We will then set some goals and actions about what things we can do to help them. How can we support them? We will then link them in with some services, whether that be peer support groups. It could be someone that might need some help getting onto My Aged Care, or it could be they need some help getting onto NDIS. We will link them with some external services as well. And then we'll check back in with them every 12 to 16 weeks. And just to make sure that everything's going okay. And if it is, what else can we do to support you? Or what can we do differently if it's not? So as I said, we have a detailed conversation with each person that registers, and we take them through these 7 elements. And while you can see that there's, we talk a little bit about finance, we're not asking for a tax return. It's not means tested. We just want to understand, is there some NDIS or My Aged Care or CHSP funding or anything like that on top of what we can offer? It could be that, they're really struggling. So we need to help them, assist them with applying for the carer's payment or a carer's allowance. It's more about what's the scenario here now and how can we add more to it? And are you aware of all the things that you are eligible for as a carer? Usually the conversation should take about 10 to 15 minutes, but it usually takes about 30 to 35 minutes to have this conversation with the carer. The reason being is they're so used to talking about the person that they care for. When we ask them, oh, how are you going? How do you feel about the caring role? It's like, oh, I've got to take this person to here and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And they always revert back to the person that they're caring for because that's what they do. That's their whole thing. They have to look after their person. They're not used to talking about themselves. So our team drag them back all the time to talk to about themselves. But it takes a little bit getting used to. By the end of the conversation, they've nailed it. But at the start, it takes a little bit of coaxing to get them to talk about themselves because they're so used to, just being across everything for the person that they care for. So what we'll do is when we do the carer star, you would have noticed 1 to 5 inside that circle, and we will ask them where they feel like they are sitting in terms of those 7 aspects, 1 being cause for concern and 5 being as good as it can get. This is just a self-rating so that we have a bit of a benchmark so we can then identify if our services are assisting the carer. It's really about trying to help them make sure that they're a bit self-aware about the problems that are happening, but also monitor to make sure our services are changing that situation as well. We also give our carers an emergency care plan and an emergency care card. So this is the card that I mentioned earlier about when the ambulance officer found the card in this gentleman's wallet that broke his hip. Now, the emergency care plan, I liken this to a USB. So if you could stick a USB in your ear as a carer and download all the information about your person that you're caring for, this would be it. So this has information about who the doctor is, what the medication is, how to treat, if something happens, what's a trigger? How do we help that person? I'm a carer for my mother-in-law. She has dementia and Parkinson's. I can guarantee you my husband and my 2 children would have no idea who my mother-in-law doctor is or what her medication is. So they all have one of these in their cars in case I win lotto and I decide I'm buying a Winnebago and I'm traveling around Australia. So they will know how to look after her because they've all got this in their glove boxes. So this is, as I said, it's like a USB, so that if anyone found this, they'd be able to look after the person that you're caring for. I mentioned earlier that each of the service providers across Australia need to provide all those elements that I just spoke about, and their services are a little bit different. What I meant by that is, for instance, when I spoke about the young carers and how we took them to the Harbour Bridge, someone in Perth is not taking their young carers to the Harbour Bridge climb. So it's the activities within each of the services, which is different, but the program itself is all exactly the same. The last thing is we're the only organisation in Australia that has a podcast, a Carer Gateway podcast. So you can scan the QR code that's on your screen on the right. And if you like podcasts, and you can have a listen. We talk to a lot of different people. We have Bronte Campbell, who's a swimming champion. She cares for her brother. We got her on in a couple of weeks. We've got Sam and Cameron Bloom from the movie Penguin Bloom. They're going to be a guest on our podcast in a couple of weeks as well. So lots of different things. It's about, if carers aren't ready to take the step to register with us, then they can listen to the podcast and still get some inspiration, or feel like they're not alone. Here's some stories from other carers as well. So does anyone have any questions, or does anyone think that they know someone who might benefit from this program? I should say too, sorry, this whole program is free. There is no cost at all to the carer for any of these items.
Liala,
you've got a question? You're on mute.
I have a comment. So first of all, thank you for your presentation. It's really interesting because we are running a series of workshops based on what is called person-centered emergency preparedness. That is this approach to support people with disabilities during emergency. And during our workshop, we presented this carer emergency plan. I thought it was really interesting because we always focus on people with disability, and it's essential for sure. But from the other point, we have also to think what is going to happen if something will happen to their carers. Yeah. So even if this tool was not, let's say, part of the PSEP approach, I thought to include it in our workshop because for me it was fundamental that also the carers knows that there is this tool for them, and it's really important they use it for themselves, but also to ensure a continuity of support for the person that they care. So Thank you for presenting today.
That's okay. I guess there's like a lot of reluctance for carers to sign up to this program. So for whatever reason, everyone has their own reasons for not wanting to acknowledge that they're a carer. It could be a cultural difference. It could just be that they don't see themselves as a carer because, they don't have to personally bathe the person, so they don't see that as a carer. So what we say to those people is it's a free program. Sign up to have the emergency respite there just in case you win lotto or something happens to you. Not that we want that to happen, but something happens to you. So services can be put in place until other arrangements can be made for the person that you love or care for, because you don't have to be related to them. And quite frankly, you don't have to love them either. So it's what we find is people sign up then and go, okay, I'll have it in my back pocket just in case. And then they get the newsletter about all the activities that we have. And then they'll go, oh, I might just go to the movies because I won't have to talk to anyone because I'm going into the movies. So I'll meet them. I'll go to the movies for free. I'll see a movie. I'll have a couple of hours to myself, and then I'll just go home. What happens is they go to the movie, they have a couple of hours to themselves, they walk out of the movie, and everyone starts, oh, wasn't Ryan Reynolds awesome? And no. They start talking. And then they realise that these people are exactly like they are. They're just looking for a timeout. They need some support. And then suddenly they're coming to every single event that we have. So I'd encourage you to, and I'll send the link to you, Tony, if you want to share it as well. I'll encourage you to all register for our newsletter, and you'll see the amount of events that we have. And this is Sydney based, so it's across Sydney. But what you'll see is we have probably about 40 events a month. They're massive. There's so many different things to choose from.
That's around the country or in Sydney?
Just in Sydney and Illawarra.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have painting, we have mindfulness, we have like they do lots of things. So, it could just be an information session about NDIS. Like there's so many different things that the team do. But, I'd encourage you to sign up so that when carer comes to you and just says, oh, I'd just love to be able to go to the movies one night by myself. Well, here you go. Sign up to Carer Gateway and off you go. And, we'll pay for it. And so they just turn up. And the same with the workshops. Like I say that we have to call them workshops. They're really retreats. They're so that people can have a little break.
You made me think that, I was aware of the Carer Gateway. What I wasn't aware of was the levels of support that you are providing, and some of them are, I would imagine have a profound effect, not to mention the cost. So I certainly wasn't aware of that. You made it a clear distinction at the beginning of your presentation about the difference between a carer and a support worker, and I think sometimes there's some confusion around that. And I know even those that rely on regular support workers, paid support workers, often slip in terms of the use of support worker / carer. So that's interesting of itself. In terms of your definition of a carer, is there a minimum number of hours that someone is providing that then says, nope, you're defined as a carer?
Nope. It could be that they are a child that just helps their sister put her shoes on every morning.
Yeah.
It could be that, like my next door neighbour, she actually looks after our next door neighbour, Iris. She takes her shopping every Wednesday to do her groceries.
Yeah.
She's a carer. So, because if Nicole didn't take Iris to the shops, Iris wouldn't get her groceries. So carers come in lots of different forms. It's about providing support to someone regularly. That's really what it is. And someone that needs extra support, whether they're, as I said, frail, due to age, disability, a chronic illness or injury, or drug or alcohol addiction, or mental health. They don't even need a referral from a doctor.
Yeah.
So
Athena's got a hand up.
Yes. You're on mute, Athena.
Still on mute, Athena. You're on mute, Athena. Sorry, let me see if I can unmute you myself.
There. I think it should be right now.
Yeah, you're right now.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for the presentation, Tracey. I've been a carer for my mum, who's 94, for the last 10 or so years. And I've been aware of the Gateway, but I've never actually gone on to have a look at what's available. I've also got a disabled brother in a nursing home, so I'm quite running around looking after them and full-time care of mum at home. And now I've got 4 grandkids as well, so I'm babysitting and caring for others. And I know how you feel when you say, you just need that time out. So this sounds like a terrific program, but how do you keep in touch? Do the emails come out? Is it a gateway where you have to log in and see what activities are on, or is there newsletters? How, because I'm time limited, how do you sort of coordinate that in our lives as well?
Yeah, so we'll send you a monthly newsletter with all our
Right.
activities. It comes out about the 16th of the month, around the middle of the
Right.
month for the next month. So, and you can register for all the events or you can register for none. It doesn't really matter. You can choose what you want to go to, and you just literally click on the link. You see, you know, a movie night, you click on the link that says movie night, register, and you're in. That's
Right.
really how easy it is. The other part that I forgot to mention is when you become registered on the program, you get assigned a client support partner. And what that is that's your contact person. So you can ring our 1-800 number and say, I would like to speak to Bethany. And she's one of our support partners. And you liaise with Bethany all the time. So she gets to know you. She gets to know the services that are put in place. She gets to understand your scenario. And then you can work together as a team.
Right. That sounds good.
So as soon as you need, I think I've frozen. Have I frozen or have you guys frozen?
You're
I'm not
fine.
sure. So as soon as you, let me stop sharing and that might help. Sorry, is everyone frozen or have I frozen?
No, you haven't frozen.
Was that me freezing? Freezing?
Maybe it's you. You're coming fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Anthea?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me, Anthea?
Yes, Tracey, we can hear you.
Tony, can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you and see you certainly haven't frozen.
Tony, can you hear me still?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Oh, I feel like I've frozen, but I couldn't see because some people were frozen and some weren't. It was weird.
No, you're coming across loud and clear.
Yeah, so you can ring the 1-800 number and say, I'd really like some counselling now. And we'll put you in with a counsellor. You could ring and say, you know, I'd like to I'm going on holidays for the weekend and I'd like some support to come in next weekend for me when I go on holidays, or I'm going to a wedding or something and I'd like some support. So you can link in with that client support partner whenever you need to.
That sounds great.
Tanya's just put a comment in the chat function saying this is so fantastic. My nephew cares for his mum and is really struggling to get his driver's license. I will let him know that you guys are there. You've actually frozen now, Tracey.
Today, technology is not supporting us.
No, it's not been great for us. So can you still hear us, Tracey? I think you have frozen, whether or not you want to go out and come back in. But look, can I just say, if you can still hear me, that was a great presentation, and we really appreciate the time you've taken in giving us that presentation. We will make this session, this forum, available on our resource hub. As I mentioned at the beginning, it is being recorded, so we'll do a little bit of an edit just to take out any lag information, but we will put it up on our resource hub in the next few days should anyone want to view it at other times.
And I'll email you some documents as well, some digital versions of our brochures and things. And like I said, you as service providers can refer people to Carer Gateway as well, because sometimes, you know, I guess when they come and see you, they're going to be quite emotional and a bit stressed. So giving them a brochure to go and call later on is probably not going to happen. So you can jump onto our website and I'll send the link through, and you can refer them as a service provider as well. And then we'll, you know, say, hi, we got your details from Tony, and, you know, about Carer Gateway. Because if you don't put your details in, then it's a bit of a cold call and they won't know where we get their details from. So.
And just letting everyone know, I did did put a link to the Carer Gateway on the agenda for today too, so it's available there. But yeah, certainly. All right, terrific. Thanks for that, Tracey. Much appreciated.
Pleasure. Thank you. And if anyone's got any questions, feel free to send me a message.
All right, we'll forward them on.
Great. Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Tracey.
Thank you. Bye.
So I take it that everyone can see. I've shared my screen now. Is everyone able to see that? All right.
Yes,
We
thanks.
can see it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to move on now to the NDIS Commission's own motion report into online platform providers. This was a topic area that we covered earlier in the year, and that did get lots of debate. Now, for those that aren't sure, a platform provider is these newer types of support services that are available, where you log on online if you are someone with a disability or someone receiving aged care, and it links you directly with support workers through the platform. So you may have heard of services like Higher Up or Mabel. They are a couple of the bigger ones. And so the NDIS Commission did do its own motion inquiry, and the report came out earlier. So I just thought I'd just cover off on a couple of important areas. The report refers to workers on the platform as providers deemed to be delivering services to participants. And the reason they do that is it's the way that a support worker interacts with the online providers. And so even though they are individuals, they are providing a service. So that's how they've defined this report in terms of support workers, in essence, operating as providers. So obviously, under that platform, those platforms, they're still bound by obligations set out in the NDIS Code of Conduct. During the 6-month period when this inquiry was taking place, from July 2022 to December 2022, there were 13,000 participants engaging platform providers. So that's quite a significant number. Most participants engaged platform providers because they could better exercise choice and control and greater flexibility. So interestingly, cost was not the primary consideration. It was more about choice and flexibility. And they've used the term self-service model dominant theme because unlike traditional service providers that people might be familiar with, where you might sign up, you'll sign a service agreement, and then you're usually working through a coordinator that would allocate workers to you. You don't really get any understanding, or you don't get to meet the support worker prior to them coming. The good thing about these platform providers is it links you directly with support workers and you can communicate with them directly before deciding then that you want to go with that person, and then they provide that support. About 87% of participant payments via platform providers was for assistance with personal activities and community participation. So for anyone that's used these services, often when you go on and you'll see a whole bunch of support workers that are available that you can communicate with. The vast majority is in areas of community participation and assistance with personal activities. Personal activities refers to things like in-home support, so personal care, domestic assistance, and so on. One thing the report did find was that price structures are so variable that participants are unsure about how to evaluate whether platform providers offer a value for money service. So I think that's something to bear in mind. I mean, I guess one thing you can do is use the NDIS price guide if you're an NDIS participant, just to get some guidance on hours of support, the price for an hour of support. But for a lot of those providers, it is negotiable, where you decide in communication with the support worker on what that hourly rate should be. By far, the majority of users of the platforms lived in major metropolitan areas, so that's 87%. So that just gives you an idea of the people that are actually accessing services is usually in major metropolitan centres. Regional centres only accounted for 6% and rural towns only 3%. And then I've just put in some information around some of the stats on primary disability of people that are using them. Interestingly, it's autism, psychosocial, and intellectual disability that are utilising these services. Participants with reported low level of function are overrepresented. This was quite surprising to me. So it's often those that require a great deal of assistance that are using these services. So people must obviously feel confident enough to be able to interact with these platform providers. 49% of participants engaged services reported a moderate level of function. Most participants were looking to engage one reliable provider or worker, and that's at 64%. That was a good fit for their support needs. So often, and I know this is similar to what SCIA's experience is, but a participant may use a number of services. They may rely on a traditional support service as well as sole traders, as well as platform providers. So that flexibility. There were some concerns around safeguarding and the role that platform providers provide in this space. And so I think this report did conclude that there's more work to be done in this area. Workers and participants were unsure about the nature of the work being conducted and where the responsibility lies, i.e. is the worker an employee of the service or a contract worker? What's the role of the participant in this engagement? Because in some respects it could be argued that you are the employer. Oversight from the Commission was a key concern. Safeguarding practices of platform providers are varied and often insufficient. So that was an important thing to factor in. Concerns related to complaints and grievances processes and handling of personal information. That came across quite strongly when people have made complaints and the handling of those complaints. What is marketed does not equal the experiences of many participants. So buyer beware in a sense. And I just pulled that quote from the report. A study done by UNSW found 42% of NDIS providers who had used an online platform to deliver services had less than 5 years of experience in the sector. I think what's important is when you actually search for support on these platforms, I think it really helps to have good communication with that person to know what their level of experience is. And I know as someone that uses those platforms myself that it's important that you actually establish that beforehand, because you will find there will be people on these platforms who don't really have a great deal of experience. And so I just think that's worth considering, making sure you do your homework in that regard. I think another important aspect about this report that came up too was that it's usually the participants themselves doing a lot of the administrative work in finding, trying to find an appropriate support through these platforms, and making sure that you have a good communication and good interaction with that person before you actually commit to services. So it's just worthwhile considering those things. So what happens next? I think from the Commission's perspective, and this is more broadly with some recognition about the role of the Commission, that it needs to provide more capacity building for participants when they're engaging online platforms or even just unregistered services. I think no one envisaged that the vast number of unregistered providers that have actually entered the market and how we engage with those services. I mean, which isn't to say that just because you might be unregistered that's bad and registered is good. That isn't the case at all. There are lots of really good unregistered service providers, but I just think it's being able to navigate those services and knowing what to be aware of, so that you feel that you are well supported. So there is more work for the Commission to do in this area, and that is working with these platform providers to try and make the safeguarding aspect a lot more robust than it is. And also just around, there were some concerns about participants' privacy information is kept confidential. So yeah, another aspect that's worth considering in trying to actually ensure that that these platform providers are doing the right thing. There was one other criticism which I think is worthwhile raising, and that is that the worker screening aspect, that these platform providers have not really been utilising that aspect to ensure that those that actually register, the support workers that register on these platforms, have actually gone through the worker screening process. Because if you are unregistered, it's not an obligation. So that's another element that's worth bearing in mind. I realise I've been talking a fair bit. Has anyone got any questions? Okay, I'll just move on. In the agenda, I did also mention the Aviation Green Paper. I was just conscious of the time, so I thought I might raise that as at another occasion. But you'll find in that agenda the link to that Green Paper. It does have an interesting chapter on it, which does talk specifically about the problems of airlines in how they are responding to the needs of people with disability. And again, that was another forum that we had earlier in the year, and that generated a huge deal of debate because of really the lousy services that airlines have been providing for people with disability. I'll move on to person-centred emergency preparedness workshops. So SCIA is conducting, holding another series of workshops. We just did some last month, and that was really well received. So we're holding 2 consecutive workshops later this month. So Wednesday, November 15 from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. and the following week, on November 22 from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So for anyone that's interested, we'd encourage you to actually register. And Leo, we've got Leala here, who runs the program and has a vast experience in emergency preparedness. Do you want to say anything about it, Leala?
Yeah, there is not a link in this slide of the PowerPoint, but you can write us an email and we can just add you. This time we will run 2 sessions that are taking place online. And the main aim is to support you on creating an emergency plan that is be created really in a tailored way, depending on your capabilities and your needs supports. So here we go. Great. So in the chat, you can see the link. And if you are interested in participating, you can just fill that form. You will receive some material also. Yeah, I think that's all, Tony. I don't know if anyone has any kind of question. Please feel free to ask.
Yeah. Has anyone got any? I forgot to ask regarding the platform providers or regarding the PSET forums coming up. Have you got any questions or feedback? Is it something that
Tony,
someone...
it's
Yeah,
Athena.
sorry, Athena.
Just 2 questions. The sessions on the 15th and the 22nd, are the same content? So it's not one, or is it 2 different sessions?
No, Athena. So first of all, I forgot to say that this program is not only for persons with disability, it's also for carers. Yeah. And it's a program that is developed in 2 sessions because we tackle different steps to create this emergency program.
Right. So from just the emergency program, is it like documenting what strategies to put in place to help the disabled person?
Yes, exactly. But it's a tool that helps you to prepare your specific emergency plan, depending on the context where you are living and the situation that you are experiencing.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is just back to Tony. Sorry to take you back to the platform providers. How does their insurance work? Like, for example, I know for our situation, we have carers that take Peter to neuro moves to do physio and exercise, and they've got their own cars, and the provider or the company itself ensures they have, car insurance and accident insurance and stuff like that. So what actually happens on those platforms? Do they go through those checks and balances, or is it left back to the participant to sort that out?
It depends on the platform provider. So just to give you an example, Mabel is one of the bigger ones. They actually cover the insurance.
Right.
Higher up is a little bit different in that everyone that you engage through higher up is actually technically employed within higher up.
Mm-hmm.
So they're covered in that regard.
Right.
I know there is 1 or 2 platform providers where those that register, the support workers, take out their own insurance.
Okay.
But what I think is probably important in engaging in these services is to just check.
Yeah.
And this is true of sole traders as well. And I've got a disability, spinal cord injury myself, so I'm an NDIS participant, and so it's important that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the person just to ensure that they do have those insurances in place, just should anything go wrong.
Yeah, thank you. I was just interested in
public
the
liability
yeah,
and third-party insurance. I think something along those lines are the important ones.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I think, was that it? Was there? Oh, there's one other aspect, and that is we actually have a survey that we've had up and running for a little while on people's experience accessing disability service providers. So, and I'll put that link in the chat as well. It would be really great if you do engage with or use what's traditionally known as disability service providers or support workers to fill in that survey, because it'll help with our advocacy. We held a forum, another forum again earlier in this year, and it was on this topic, and there was a great deal of debate on the pros and cons, the good and the bad of using service providers. And in part, it's because that service providers are in such high demand at the moment, and trying to actually find and utilise experienced and good quality support workers isn't so easy. You might go to a service provider, but often they're at capacity, so it is a struggle. Our email address is representative@scia.org.au. So if you've got any questions, thoughts, comments, or that you want to follow up with us, yeah, please just flick us a line.